Hello, this is Miss King, and here's a recording that should explain to you the reason behind the multiplication rules for real numbers, positive and negative, whole numbers and parts of numbers, fractions, integers, both positive and negative. So let's go ahead and look at these bananas. I have 2 bananas here, 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 I have 2 bananas here. Okay. So right now what I have is 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 bananas total. So multiplication is just repeated addition. I just look, if they're all the same size group, I just count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of 2 is 10. Okay? So what happens if these bananas are evil? All right, so right here I have 2 negative bananas, and 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 I have 2 negative bananas. So a -2 plus a -2 plus a -2 plus a -2 plus a -2 is a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 negative bananas, a -10. You might be thinking, Miss King, a negative banana? What's that? And I will tell you, it doesn't matter. Could be it's poisonous. Could be it's just a banana in a bad mood. The reason that I'm using this is just to remind you that 10 and -10 are 2 totally different numbers. Okay, so a 2 plus a -2, 2 totally different numbers. So just keep that in mind. Bananas are not the same as negative bananas. 2 is not the same as a -2. So the way I look at it is multiplication. I have 5 groups of a -2 bananas, which would be a -10. Next, what about negative number times a positive number? We can use logical thinking to prove that a negative times a positive is a negative. Let's come over here. We already figured out that 5 times a -2 is -10. So I just wrote it there. We also know that multiplication is commutative. Multiplication is commutative. That means we can change the order of whatever we're multiplying and it doesn't matter. It still ends up the same value. So if 5 times a -2 is a -10, I can switch those, the order of those. A -2 times 5 is also a -10. I can switch the order. The value stays the same. What about multiplying by 0? Well, just think of it like this. Here's all my bananas, right? Okay. What if we have 5 groups of no bananas? Okay. What if we have 5 groups of no bananas? There's a group of none, and 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 there's a group of none. 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 0. That means 5 groups with nothing in them is still nothing. Okay, that's the proof for anything times 0. And of course, because multiplication is commutative, then 0 times 5 would also be 0. All right, here's the last one. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly because you don't need to have this memorized. I'm just showing you by using a logical proof, we can prove that 2 numbers multiplied by each other, 2 negative numbers multiplied by each other turn out to be positive. So I'm just going to give this given statement because it is true. Anything times 0 is 0. So I'm going to just start with -5 times 0 is 0. Okay, given. Well, that's what we're starting with. So right here, I'm going to throw this in. 2 plus a -2 is equal to 0 because that's the inverse property of addition. We know that that's the additive inverse. any number plus its opposite is equal to 0. Now I'm going to take this 0 right here and I'm going to dig it out and I'm going to substitute this whole thing. Since this whole side right here is equal to 0, I'm going to substitute it into this equation. So it looks like this. Substitute. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute because I have a negative 5 times a negative times 2, and I have a negative 5 plus, plus, and then negative 5 times a negative 2. Okay, distribute it. Now I'm going to multiply this right here. Negative 5 times 2 is a negative 10, and I already know that's true because a negative times a positive is a negative. Okay, negative 10. Okay, I'm going to leave this because that's what I'm trying to prove. So I'm just going to leave it. What I am going to write here, though, is a negative 10 plus 10 is 0 for the same reason. Do you see? They're additive inverse. Negative 10 plus its opposite is 0. So if this is equal to 0 and this is equal to 0, then this is equal to this, and I'm going to set it equal to each other. That's the transitive property. And then finally, you can probably see it, but we will learn the addition property of equality, where if you add something to one side, you add it to the other, it keeps it in balance. Okay, so I'm going to just add 10 to both sides, and I come up with this answer, which I'm trying to prove. A negative times a negative is a positive. Like I said, you don't have to have all of these background things memorized, just as long as you remember the rules. Positive times a positive is a positive. Look at that happy face. Negative times a negative. Oh, look at that serene face. Both positive. Okay, a negative times a positive, or a positive times a negative. Negative times a positive, positive times a negative. They look like they got punched in the eye. That is negative. All right. We already know how to simplify. None of this has changed. The only thing we're adding to it is when we get to multiplying, we just follow these rules. Everything else is exactly the same. You substitute the same, you simplify in the same order. It's all the same.